The orbital station hung in the void like a crystal flower, its transparent petals reflecting the light of 3 distant suns. Inside the main chamber, 12 representatives from the oldest civilizations in the galaxy sat in a perfect circle. They had been doing this for thousands of years, keeping peace, making laws, and welcoming new species into their cosmic family. Captain Daiho stood in the center of that circle, feeling very small. His uniform was crisp and new, designed specifically for this moment. Behind him, through the observation window, he could see his ship, the Harmony Dawn. It looked tiny compared to the massive vessels of the other species, docked nearby. This was supposed to be a good day. Humanity had finally been invited to join the Galactic Council after 30 years of observation. 30 years of proving they could be peaceful, that they could follow the rules, that they deserved a place among the stars. Daiho had practiced his speech for months. He knew every word, every gesture, every diplomatic phrase. Then the Arbiter asked the question. Velmouth was a being made of living crystal, ancient beyond human understanding. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind chimes in a storm. Captain Daiho of Earth, we require your species weapons inventory for our records. This is standard procedure. All member species must register their armaments, so we may enforce the limitation protocols. Please provide the list. Daiho opened his mouth, then closed it, then opened it again. Up in the observation deck, Lieutenant Mina watched her captain struggle. She had never seen him at a loss for words before. He was always confident, always prepared. But now he looked like a student who had forgotten to study for the most important test of his life. Daiho started. The thing is ... The 12 council members waited. They had all done this before. Most species had similar weapons. Energy rifles that could be set to stun or kill. Plasma cannons for ship defense. Kinetic missiles for extreme situations. The council would register them, set limits on how many could be produced, and everyone would move on. Simple. We don't exactly have a list, Daiho finally said. Silence filled the chamber. One of the council members, a floating jellyfish-like creature named Quilmora, pulsed with confusion. You have no weapons? But our scouts reported military vessels in your system. No, we have weapons, Daiho said quickly. Lots of weapons. Too many weapons. That's not the problem. Then what is the problem? Velmouth asked, its crystalline structure shifting slightly, showing mild irritation. Daiho took a deep breath. The problem is that almost everything we have can be a weapon. I don't know how to make a list, because the list would include ... everything. The chamber erupted in confused murmurs. Several species began speaking at once in their various languages. The translation systems struggled to keep up. One council member, an insectoid being called Threxil, raised a clawed appendage for silence. Explain yourself, human. Do you mean to say your entire civilization is military? No, Daiho said, feeling sweat form on his forehead, despite the climate-controlled chamber. I mean that we've learned to make weapons out of almost anything. Our history is ... complicated. Mina watched from above, gripping the railing. She wanted to help him, but this was his moment. She knew what he was trying to say because she had helped prepare the files. The problem was that those files were massive. The weapons history of humanity wasn't a list. It was an encyclopedia. Multiple encyclopedias. Give us an example, Velmouth demanded. One weapon. Surely you can name one weapon. A rock, Daiho said. The chamber went silent again, but this time the silence felt dangerous. A rock? Quilmora pulsed with what the translator interpreted as disbelief. You insult this council with jokes? I'm not joking, Daiho said. Humans have been using rocks as weapons for millions of years. We throw them. We sharpen them. We tie them to sticks. And now If we accelerate a rock to near light speed using our engines, it has the destructive force of a nuclear weapon. This is absurd, said another council member, a reptilian being whose name Deho couldn't pronounce. All species used primitive tools. We ask about your modern military capabilities. That's what I'm trying to explain, Deho said, his frustration growing. We don't separate tools from weapons the way you do. A mining laser can cut through rock, but it can also cut through armor. A cargo ship's engine can move goods, but it can also ram another ship at devastating speeds. Our medical knowledge of biology and chemistry means we know exactly how to hurt people as well as heal them. The council members looked at each other. This was unprecedented. Every species they had encountered had clear military and civilian divisions. Weapons were weapons. Tools were tools. The line was obvious, except to humans, apparently. I request a recess, Deho said formally. 3 days to prepare a proper presentation. This isn't something I can explain in a few sentences. Velmuth conferred with the other council members in rapid exchanges of light, sound, and electromagnetic pulses. Finally, it turned back to Deho. Request granted. You have 3 days. But understand this, Captain. If we cannot verify that your species can control its weapons, we cannot accept you into this council. We have maintained peace for 3,000 years through careful regulation. We will not allow that peace to be threatened. Understood, Deho said, bowing formally. As he left the chamber, Mina met him at the door. That went well, she said sarcastically. We're in trouble, Deho muttered. Call Earth. Tell them we need the entire Defense Council here, and someone from history, and engineering, and medicine, and... He paused. Just tell them we need experts in everything, because apparently everything is a weapon. They walked through the station's corridors in silence. Around them, aliens from 100 worlds moved about their business. Some stared at the humans with curiosity. Others ignored them entirely. None of them knew that in 3 days, their entire understanding of warfare was about to be challenged. In his quarters that night, Deho stared at the preliminary report on his datapad. Page after page of human weapons history. It started with sharpened stones and currently ended with experimental quantum disruptors. The progression was terrifying, even to him, and he was human. Tomorrow, experts would arrive from Earth. Together, they would have to explain to the galaxy why humanity was the way it was, why they saw weapons in everything, why their entire history was written in blood and innovation. Deho wasn't sure if the galaxy was ready for that truth. He wasn't sure if he was ready either. 3 days passed like 3 hours. The human delegation arrived on the second day, looking tired and nervous. Commander Jiwan led the group, a tall woman with sharp eyes and a reputation for being brutally honest. She had fought in the border wars, back when humanity thought they were alone in the universe. Now she commanded the Deep Space Defense Initiative, which meant she knew more about human weapons than almost anyone alive. The demonstration was scheduled in a remote asteroid field, far from any inhabited systems. The Council had set up a testing range there, complete with targets, sensors, and reinforced observation platforms. They expected the humans to bring a few weapons, show them off, and provide technical specifications. Standard procedure. G1 brought a bag. Is this a joke? Threxel clicked angrily, his insectoid mandibles snapping. We provide you with military transport, and you bring luggage? This is the demonstration, G1 said calmly. She reached into the bag and pulled out a rock. Not a special rock, just a gray, ordinary piece of stone about the size of a fist. This is a weapon. The 12 council members stared, Quillmora pulsed with what might have been confusion or anger. Velmuth's crystalline structure flickered with irritation. We have seen your captain's report, the Arbiter said coldly. We are not amused by this mockery. No mockery intended, Jiwan replied. She handed the rock to one of her team members, a young specialist named Hyan. He walked over to a small railgun device they had set up. It looked like a metal tube with a power supply. This is a mining tool. We use it to launch survey probes. Hyan demonstrate. Hyan loaded the rock into the railgun, aimed it at one of the target drones the council had provided, and fired. The rock disappeared. A fraction of a second later, the drone exploded into fragments. The sensors lit up with readings that made several council members recoil. At 0.95% light speed, Jiwan explained. That rock carries kinetic energy equivalent to a 50 megaton nuclear warhead. We use smaller versions of this technology to move cargo containers in our shipyards. Any cargo container, moving fast enough, becomes a missile. The silence that followed was different from the silence 3 days ago. This was the silence of understanding, and it was far more uncomfortable. Next demonstration, Jiwan continued. She gestured to another team member, Dr. Sumi, a xenobiologist who looked too kind to be at a weapons demonstration. Sumi held up a sealed container. This contains common Earth bacteria, Sumi said softly. Completely harmless to humans. We evolved with it. But to 90% of known galactic species, it would be lethal within days. We didn't weaponize it intentionally. We didn't have to. Our entire biosphere is a weapon to most aliens. You wouldn't, Quillmora pulsed, their translator crackling with emotion. Of course not, Sumi said, looking hurt. But that's not the point. The point is that we could. Every human ship carries billions of bacteria. Every human body is a walking biological hazard to most species we meet. We've installed decontamination systems everywhere, but the capacity for harm exists, whether we want it or not. Continue, Velmuth said quietly. The Arbiter's tone had changed. There was no more irritation, only a growing concern. Hyan stepped forward again with what looked like an industrial cutting tool. Standard mining laser, he said, rated for excavating tunnels through solid rock. He activated it, and a beam of coherent light shot out, slicing through another target drone like it was made of paper. Same technology as a laser weapon. We just use it for construction instead. The demonstrations continued. Engineer Tai Yang showed how their fusion reactors were essentially contained explosions, controlled by computers. If I wanted to, he said carefully, I could override the safeties and turn any reactor into a bomb. Every ship, every station, every colony has this potential. One of the council members, a gentle-looking being named Polvex, raised a tentacle. Surely your people have safeguards? Surely not everyone can do these things? We have safeguards, Tai Yang admitted. Good ones, but the knowledge exists. Any engineer with basic training could figure it out. We can't unknown what we know. A chemist demonstrated how common cleaning supplies could be combined into explosives. A sound engineer showed how their acoustic systems, designed for entertainment, could be weaponized to shatter bone. A programmer explained how any artificial intelligence could be repurposed for warfare. 2 hours into the demonstration, Jiwan called a break. The council members looked shaken. They huddled together, speaking in hushed tones. Daho and Mina watched from the Harmony Dawn, monitoring the feeds. They're terrified, Mina said quietly. Can you blame them? Daho replied, We're terrified of ourselves half the time. After the break, Jiwan addressed the council directly. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that humans are dangerous, that we see everything as a potential weapon because we're violent and aggressive. And you're not entirely wrong. Threxal leaned forward. Then why should we allow your species into civilized space? Because we've had these capabilities for a long time, Jiwan said. And we're still here. We didn't destroy ourselves even though we could have. Many times. We chose not to. She pulled up a holographic display showing Earth from space. 3 generations ago, we had enough nuclear weapons to end all life on our planet dozens of times over. We built them because we were afraid of each other. We pointed them at our own cities, our own children. And then somehow we stepped back from that edge. The hologram changed, showing human cities, peaceful and thriving. We're not saying we're perfect. We're not saying we've solved violence. But we've learned to control it. We've learned to redirect it. All that creative energy we used to make better weapons, we're using it to make better engines, better medicine, better futures. But the weapons remain, Velmuth observed. Yes, Jiwan admitted. They do, because the universe isn't always kind. Because threats exist. Because we believe in being prepared. But there's a difference between having weapons and using them. She gestured to her team. Every person here could kill you in dozens of ways. We have the knowledge, the tools, the capability. But we won't. Because we've chosen a different path. That's what you need to understand about humanity. We're not dangerous because we have weapons. Every species has weapons. We're different because we see weapons everywhere and choose not to use them. The demonstration ended in silence. The council dismissed the humans and convened a private session. As Jiwan and her team packed up their equipment, she looked at the asteroid field around them. Do you think it worked? Hyan asked. I think we scared them, Jiwan replied. Whether that leads to acceptance or rejection, I honestly don't know. Back on the observation platform, Velmuth spoke to the assembled council. In 3,000 years, we have never encountered a species like this. They weaponize everything they touch, not through malice, but through sheer creative adaptation. They are too dangerous, one member insisted. Perhaps, Velmuth replied. Or perhaps they are exactly what the galaxy needs. We have grown comfortable in our peace. We have forgotten that the universe contains threats we cannot negotiate with. Perhaps these humans, with all their dangerous knowledge, are the guardians we never knew we needed. The debate raged on, but something had changed. The council was no longer asking whether humans had weapons. They were asking what it meant that humans had chosen not to use them. The council chamber felt colder the next day. The delegates had requested something unprecedented, a complete historical briefing on human warfare. They wanted to understand how humanity had become what they were. They needed context, they said. Context for the horror they had witnessed in the asteroid field. Historian Yunji stood where Captain Deho had stood days before. She was older than most of the delegation, her hair streaked with gray. She had spent 40 years studying human conflict, writing books that no one liked to read because they told uncomfortable truths. Now those truths were required testimony. I'll begin at the beginning, she said, her voice steady despite the weight of what she was about to reveal. 4 million years ago, our ancestors picked up the first weapons, stones, sticks, bones from dead animals. We used them to hunt, to defend ourselves, to fight each other. The holographic display showed primitive humans, barely recognizable as the species that now stood before the council. They were using simple tools, surviving in a harsh world. Every species starts somewhere, Quillmore repulsed. This is not unique. You're right, Yunji agreed. But watch what happens next. The timeline accelerated. Stone tools became more sophisticated. Spears appeared, axes, bows and arrows. The council watched as humans spread across their planet, and everywhere they went, the weapons improved. We didn't just make weapons, Yunji explained. We innovated them, constantly. A spear wasn't good enough, so we added a throwing stick to throw it farther. A bow wasn't powerful enough, so we made crossbows. We never stopped improving, never stopped thinking of better ways to hunt, to fight, to kill. The hologram showed ancient battles. Thousands of humans fighting with bronze swords, then iron, then steel. Cities burning. Armies marching. The scale of violence grew with each passing century. Threx L clicked his mandibles nervously. Other species had wars. This is still not unique. You're right again, Yunji said. But keep watching. The timeline reached a critical point. Gunpowder. The council watched as human warfare transformed. Cannons demolished castle walls that had stood for generations. Muskets made armor obsolete. Warfare became louder, faster, more deadly. This is where we became different, Yunji said quietly. This is where we started using chemistry, physics, and engineering specifically for weapons. Not as a side effect. Not as an afterthought. We studied science to make better ways to kill. Military analyst Su-Yun took over the presentation. He was younger than Yunji, but his eyes held the same tired weight. The pace of innovation accelerated dramatically. Watch. The hologram showed human history speeding up. Muskets became rifles. Cannons became artillery. Then came machine guns, capable of firing hundreds of rounds per minute. Warships made of steel. Submarines that hunted beneath the waves. Aircraft that dropped bombs from the sky. From the first airplane to fighter jets took 50 years, Su-Yun explained. From simple rifles to automatic weapons took less than a century. We didn't just improve our weapons gradually. We revolutionized them constantly. The council watched in growing horror as the 20th century unfolded. Two massive wars that consumed entire continents. Industrial-scale warfare that killed millions. Tanks, bombers, chemical weapons, biological weapons. The humans had turned their entire industrial capacity toward destruction. Surely this was the worst of it, Polvex said hopefully. Surely after such devastation, your species learned peace? Professor Jiong stepped forward. She looked sick, as if the words she was about to speak physically pained her. No, we learned to make something worse. The hologram showed a mushroom cloud rising over a city. Then another. The sensors in the chamber detected elevated stress responses from multiple council members. Nuclear fission, Jiang said. We split the atom. We unlocked the fundamental forces of the universe. And within 2 years of discovering it, we used it to destroy 2 cities and kill hundreds of thousands of people instantly. She paused, letting that sink in. But that wasn't enough. We made hydrogen bombs. Fusion weapons thousands of times more powerful. We built missiles that could carry them across the world in minutes. We put them in submarines, in silos, in aircraft. At our peak, we had enough nuclear weapons to destroy our entire planet's surface dozens of times over. Madness, Belmont said, its crystalline structure darkening. Complete madness. Yes, Jiang agreed. We called it mutually assured destruction. We built weapons so terrible that using them would guarantee our own extinction. And we lived like that for decades. Every day, every hour, we were one mistake away from ending our species. The council chamber was absolutely silent. They had never heard of anything like this. Their own histories had conflicts, yes. Wars even. But nothing on this scale. Nothing this deliberately self-destructive. What happened? Quilmora asked. How did you survive? Barely, Yunji said, taking over again. We came close to extinction several times. Computer errors, political tensions, misunderstandings that almost triggered nuclear war. But somehow we didn't fire. Somehow, people in positions of power chose not to end the world. The timeline continued forward. The nuclear arsenals slowly decreased but never disappeared. Meanwhile, new weapons appeared. Precision-guided missiles, stealth technology, drones, cyber warfare, biological engineering. Each advancement made warfare more sophisticated, more targeted, but no less deadly. And you continued, Threxel said, his tone a mixture of awe and disgust. Even after almost destroying yourselves, you continued to innovate in warfare. We did, Suyun confirmed. Because we couldn't forget what we learned. Because other nations had weapons, so we needed weapons. Because we told ourselves that being prepared prevented war. And sometimes it did. A hologram showed the present day. Railguns, plasma weapons, antimatter research, quantum technology, AI-driven warfare systems. Even in the age of space exploration, even after meeting alien species, humanity was still developing new ways to fight. This is what you need to understand, Yunji said, addressing the council directly. War isn't something that happened to humanity. It's something we did, constantly, for our entire existence. It shaped our culture, our technology, our way of thinking. We are good at warfare because we practiced it for millions of years. She pulled up a final image. Earth, blue and green and beautiful, hanging in space. But we're still here. Despite all of this, despite the weapons, despite the wars, despite coming to the edge of extinction, we survived. We chose to survive. We chose to reach for the stars instead of destroying ourselves. The council sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Velmuth spoke. Your species frightens us. Historian Yunji, this record you have shown us is a chronicle of death and destruction on a scale we cannot comprehend. I know, Yunji said. It frightens us too. That's why we're telling you. We're not hiding what we are. We want you to understand that we know what we're capable of, and we're choosing a different path. Can you? Another council member asked. Can a species so steeped in violence truly change? We already have, Yunji replied. We've been at relative peace for 70 years. That's longer than most of our nations have ever known. We're not perfect. We still have conflicts. But we're learning. We're growing. And we're hoping you'll give us a chance to prove that our future can be different from our past. As the presentation ended and Yunji left the chamber, she felt exhausted. She had just spent 3 hours explaining the worst parts of human history to beings who had never known such violence. Part of her wondered if she had just doomed humanity's chances at galactic membership, but another part of her felt relief. The truth was out. No more hiding. No more pretending humanity was something they weren't. Whatever the council decided now, it would be based on honesty. The question hung in the air like smoke after a fire. Threxal the Ancient, oldest member of the council, had asked it in a voice that carried 10,000 years of confusion. Why? Why would an intelligent species obsess over destruction? Why dedicate so much creativity and energy to warfare? Why, when given the gift of consciousness, use it to devise better methods of killing? The council needed to understand the nature of humanity itself. Ambassador Minji entered the philosophical tribunal chamber with anthropologist Sunho at her side. Unlike the previous presentations, this one had no weapons demonstrations, no historical timelines, no technical specifications. This was about the human mind, human nature, and why they were the way they were. You want to know why, Minji said, her voice calm. That's a fair question. But to answer it, you need to understand where we come from. Suungho activated a holographic display showing Earth, but not the peaceful blue marble from space. This showed the planet's surface, vast oceans, dense jungles, frozen tundras, scorching deserts. Our world is beautiful, he said, but it's also incredibly hostile. The hologram zoomed in, showing predators hunting prey, natural disasters destroying habitats, droughts, and floods and fires. Every continent on Earth developed complex ecosystems where survival meant competition. There was no garden of paradise waiting for humans. We had to fight for every meal, every shelter, every day of life. Many species evolved in difficult conditions, Quillmora pulsed. This does not explain your violence toward each other. You're right, Suho agreed. So let me show you how humans evolved specifically. The display showed early human ancestors, not yet walking upright. We were prey animals once. Weak, slow, with no claws, no venom, no armor. By all rights, we should have gone extinct. But we had one advantage. We could think. The hologram showed humans hunting, not with strength, but with persistence. We became persistence predators. We couldn't outrun our prey, so we chased them until they collapsed from exhaustion. It took all day sometimes. We developed the ability to sweat, to cool ourselves, to keep going when other animals had to stop. We learned to track, to predict, to outlast. And we learned to throw, he continued. The display showed a human throwing a spear with remarkable accuracy. Unique among Earth species, we developed the ability to throw objects with precision and force. Our shoulders, our brains, our eyes, all evolved to make us better at hitting distant targets. We literally evolved to be better at using weapons. Psychologist Dahi took over the presentation, her expression serious. But the real problem is this. We also evolved to fight each other. The hologram showed different groups of early humans, separated by rivers, mountains, valleys. We spread across the planet, and we separated into tribes. Each tribe competed for the same resources: food, water, shelter, mates. The tribes that survived were the ones that could defend their territory and take resources from others. She pulled up brain scans, neural pathways highlighted in color. We evolved to recognize faces, to identify who was in our group and who wasn't. We developed language to coordinate with our allies and deceive our enemies. We created culture, religion, and identity, all of which helped our tribe survive. But they also made us see other humans as other, as threats, as competitors. We call it tribalism, Nahi explained. It's built into how we think. We form groups quickly. We trust our group and distrust outsiders. We can rationalize tremendous violence against people we see as not us. It's not logical. It's not fair. But it's how we're wired. The council members shifted uncomfortably. This was explaining too much, making human violence seem inevitable, predetermined by biology. But that's only half the story, Minji interjected. Yes, we evolved for conflict. But we also evolved for cooperation. She gestured to Sungho, who pulled up different images. Humans working together, building, creating, caring for each other. We're also the most cooperative species we know. We form alliances, share resources, sacrifice for strangers. We create art, music, science. We have empathy, compassion, love. So which is the real humanity? Velmuth asked. The warriors or the artists? Both, Minji said simply. We're both. That's what makes us complicated. Captain Jaewon entered the chamber then, still in his uniform despite retiring from active duty years ago. He was older now, his face lined with scars and experience. He had fought in the border wars, seen combat that would give anyone nightmares. He was also one of the most vocal advocates for peace in human space. I've killed people, Jaewon said bluntly, his voice rough. During the wars, before we knew we weren't alone. I was good at it. That's not a boast. It's just true. I understood weapons, tactics, how to hurt people efficiently. The council listened, uncertain where this was going. But I hated it, Jaewon continued. Every day, every mission. I hated what I was good at. And when the wars ended, I swore I'd never fire a weapon again unless there was absolutely no other choice. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each council member. That's humanity. We're capable of terrible violence. We know how to hurt, how to kill, how to destroy. But most of us hate doing it. We only do it when we feel we have no choice. How can we trust that? Threxel asked. How can we know you won't see us as threats, as other, and turn your weapons on us? Dr. Yuna, the conflict resolution specialist, stepped forward. She was younger than the others, but she had spent her entire career studying how to prevent violence. Because we've learned, she said. It took us a long time, and we made terrible mistakes, but we've learned. She pulled up statistics, graphs, data spanning centuries. Human violence has been declining for hundreds of years. We're less likely to die in wars now than at any point in our history. We've developed systems, laws, and cultures that discourage violence and encourage cooperation. It's not perfect. We still have problems. But the trend is clear. We created the United Nations, Yuna continued. The International Criminal Court, peace treaties, trade agreements. We built systems to resolve conflicts without warfare. And they work. Not perfectly, not always, but they work more often than they fail. She showed images of humans from different nations, different cultures, working together in space stations, research facilities, diplomatic corps. We learned that cooperation is more profitable than conflict. That diversity makes us stronger. That we achieve. More together than we ever could apart. 70 years, she emphasized. 70 years of relative peace. That's unprecedented in human history. Not because we forgot how to fight. Not because we got rid of our weapons. But because we chose a different path. Minji stepped forward again, bringing the presentation to its conclusion. You asked why we're violent. The answer is evolution, competition, and survival. But you should also ask why we're peaceful. The answer is choice, learning, and hope. We know what we are, she said, her voice strong and clear. We know we're dangerous. We know we have the capacity for tremendous violence. But we also know we have the capacity for tremendous compassion. We've chosen compassion. We've chosen cooperation. We've chosen to reach for the stars instead of destroying ourselves. Can we guarantee we'll never be violent again? She continued. No, we're still human. We still have that evolutionary baggage. But we can guarantee we'll try. We'll keep working to be better. We'll keep choosing peace over war. That's all we can offer, Minji finished. Honesty about what we are, evidence of what we've become, and a commitment to keep improving. We're not asking you to trust us blindly. We're asking you to give us a chance to prove ourselves. The tribunal chamber fell silent. The council members conferred among themselves in low tones, lights flickering, tentacles waving, mandibles clicking. Finally, Velmuth spoke. You have given us much to consider, Ambassador Minji. Your species is unlike anything we have encountered. You frighten us, but you also intrigue us. We will deliberate further. As the human delegation left the chamber, Jaewon walked beside Minji. Do you think it worked? He asked quietly. I think we told the truth, Minji replied. Whether that's enough, we'll find out soon. A debate had been raging for 3 weeks. The Galactic Council Chamber, usually a place of calm deliberation and unanimous decisions, had become a battleground of words and ideology. Never in 3,000 years of recorded history had they argued so intensely over a single membership application. Fleet Commander Min Seok watched from orbit aboard the Harmony Dawn. His crew was restless. They had been in holding pattern for 23 days, waiting for a verdict that might never come. Some crew members had started betting on the outcome. Others had written letters home, preparing for the possibility that humanity might be permanently banned from galactic space. Down on the station. Inside the council chamber, Velmuth called for order for the 100th time. We must reach a decision. The humans have been waiting long enough. Reject them, one council member stated flatly, a crystalline being whose name translated roughly to Keeper of Peace. They are too dangerous. Their entire civilization is built on violence. We cannot risk contaminating galactic society with their influence. Agreed, another voice added. This came from a delegate representing the Peaceful Collective, a group of species who had evolved without warfare. We have maintained peace for millennia by excluding violent species. Humanity has proven they are the most violent species we have ever encountered. The answer is obvious. But Quilmora pulsed with disagreement. They have also proven they can control their violence. 70 years of peace. That shows capacity for change. 70 years is nothing. Threxal clicked. A blink of an eye in galactic terms. What happens in another 70 years? What happens when they feel threatened? Will they unleash their weapons on us? Perhaps we should quarantine them, suggested Polvex. Keep them contained to their home system. Monitor them for several generations. If they maintain peace, we can reconsider. That is not fair, Counselor Hana objected. She was humanity's sole advocate in the chamber, a human who had been living on the station for 5 years as an observer. You would punish them for being honest? They could have lied. They could have hidden their weapons. Instead, they showed you everything and asked for your trust. Honesty does not equal safety, someone countered. The argument went in circles. Some council members saw potential in humanity, noting their creativity, their resilience, their technological innovations that could benefit everyone. Others saw only danger, recounting the horrific history Yunji had presented. The demonstrations of weaponized everyday items. The evolutionary psychology that made humans naturally tribal and violent. We need them, a quiet voice finally said. It was Velmoth, the arbiter, speaking more candidly than usual. We do not want to admit it, but we need them. The chamber fell silent. Velmoth rarely expressed personal opinions during deliberations. We have been at peace so long that we have forgotten how to defend ourselves, the arbiter continued. The pirate raids on the outer colonies. The rogue II incident in the Terminus sector. The unexplained disappearances in the Void border. We have no solutions to these problems because we have no experience with conflict. We have defense forces, someone protested. We have security guards, Velmoth corrected. Sufficient for criminals and minor disputes. But if a real threat emerges, something that cannot be negotiated with, we will be helpless. The humans have been preparing for such threats their entire existence. They understand conflict in ways we never will. So we should accept them out of fear? Threxal asked. Make them our guardians? No, Velmoth said. We should accept them as equals. With restrictions, yes. With monitoring, certainly. But as members of this council, who bring valuable perspective and capability that we lack. Hannah saw her opportunity. If I may speak, there is something else you should know about humanity. Something we haven't shown you yet. She activated a holographic display showing the Prometheus engine, humanity's latest achievement in faster-than-light travel. This technology could revolutionize galactic transportation. It's 3 times faster than current FTL drives and uses half the energy. The council members leaned forward, interested despite themselves. Chief Engineer Minsu and physicist June developed this, Hana continued. The same minds that created weapons of destruction also created this. Human creativity isn't just about warfare. It's about solving problems, any problems, in innovative ways. She showed more examples. Medical advances from human research. Agricultural techniques that could feed entire planets. Communication systems. Environmental restoration technology. All of it developed by a species that, yes, knew how to make weapons, but also knew how to build, heal, and create. They see weapons everywhere because they see solutions everywhere, Hana argued. They look at a problem from every angle, including dangerous angles. That makes them uncomfortable allies, I admit, but it also makes them incredibly valuable ones. This is a sales pitch, someone accused. No, Hannah said firmly. This is context. You've seen the worst of humanity. You've seen their capacity for violence. But you haven't seen their capacity for growth, for innovation, for choosing the harder right over the easier wrong. The debate continued for another week. The arguments became more nuanced, less about absolute rejection or acceptance, and more about terms, conditions, restrictions. What safeguards could be put in place? What monitoring systems? What would happen if humans violated galactic law? Finally, after 31 days, Velmuth called for the vote. All in favor of accepting humanity as full members of the Galactic Council, with appropriate restrictions and monitoring protocols. Indicate now. Lights flickered around the chamber. Some bright and immediate. Others dimmer, hesitant. Some not at all. Velmuth counted. Once, twice, 3 times to be sure. The vote is recorded. By a margin of 1, humanity is accepted as a member of the Galactic Council. The chamber erupted. Those who had voted yes looked relieved but nervous. Those who had voted no looked angry or frightened. It was the closest vote in Council history, and everyone knew it. However, Velmuth continued, restoring order. The following conditions apply. Human weapons technology will be registered and limited. Human ships will carry independent observers. Human colonies will be monitored. Any violations of galactic peace laws will result in immediate suspension of membership. These terms are non-negotiable. Agreed, Hannah said immediately. She had expected as much. Humanity was getting a chance, but it was a chance with strings attached. Aboard the Harmony Dawn, Minseok received the news and allowed himself a small smile. Lieutenant Mina, standing beside him, looked less certain. Is this a victory? She asked. It's an opportunity, Minseok replied. What we make of it is up to us. On the station, Captain Deho met with the human delegation. They looked exhausted but cautiously optimistic. We did it, Yunji said. By the smallest margin possible, but we did it. Now comes the hard part, Jiwan added, proving we deserve this chance. Days later, as the human fleet began integrating with galactic society, Deho stood on the observation deck watching the other ships. Vessels from 100 worlds, representing thousands of years of peaceful coexistence. Humanity was now part of that. The newest, most controversial, most closely watched members. But part of it nonetheless. They asked about our weapons, Nina said. Standing beside him. They should have asked about our restraint, A.L. replied quietly. Anyone can build weapons. The real achievement is choosing not to use them. News spread through the galaxy. Humanity had been accepted. Some species celebrated, curious about these strange, violent but peaceful newcomers. Others protested, demanding their governments withdraw from the council. Most simply watched and waited, uncertain what to make of these humans. On Earth, celebrations erupted in every major city. Humanity was officially part of the galactic community. They had been tested, challenged, and judged, and they had passed. Barely dot, but in military installations, research facilities, and government offices, serious conversations were happening. Humanity had made promises. They would have to keep them. The eyes of the galaxy were watching, and any mistake could undo everything they had achieved. 10 years passed. Humanity kept its promises. Human observers monitored their own ships. Their weapons were registered, limited, controlled. There were incidents, of course. Misunderstandings, cultural clashes, a few heated arguments. But no violence. No warfare. No betrayal of galactic trust. Then came the Void Swarm. the distress call reached the Council from the Outer Rim. Unknown entities, possibly extradimensional, were destroying everything in their path. Entire colonies gone. Defense fleets scattered. Traditional weapons ineffective. The peaceful species of the galaxy were facing something they had no experience with. An enemy that couldn't be reasoned with. Emergency session. Panicked delegates. Velmoth's crystalline structure flickering with stress. We need options, the Arbiter said. Strategies, solutions. Silence. 3,000 years of peace had left them unprepared for war. Then Hannah spoke. Call the humans. No, several voices objected immediately. Call them, Hannah insisted. This is exactly what you are afraid of. Well, it's here. The galaxy needs defenders. You know who has spent their entire existence preparing for threats like this. The vote was faster this time. Less debate. Desperation made the choice simple. The call went out. Admiral Jiwan, now commanding the Joint Defense Fleet, received the message aboard her flagship. She read it twice, making sure she understood. They need us, her second-in-command said. They need weapons, Jiwan corrected. They need what they feared most about us. She turned to her crew, seeing humans who had spent a decade proving they could be peaceful. Now the galaxy was asking them to be something else. Send the message to Earth, she ordered. Full mobilization. Defensive protocols. And someone remind the Council that they asked for this. As the human fleet prepared to face the Void Swarm, Jiwan stood on her bridge and smiled grimly. The galaxy had trembled when they learned about human weapons. They had feared what humanity might do with all that destructive knowledge. Now, for the first time, they were grateful for it. Humanity didn't join the galaxy to conquer it. But they would be damned if they let anyone else do so either.